Before we start, press the subscribe button to receive all new updates. And if you like the video, do not forget to press the like button and share the video. Secret number 2. Bondage or liberty. A self-confident personality is not possible until we build a solid foundation of self-reliance. Many people think that a person who is self-reliant must be aloof, disinterested, or unfriendly towards others. This is a totally false conception. By not being dependent, the self-reliant person can relate to others with compassion and empathy while, at the same time, retaining self-confidence and poise. Able to stand on his or her own 2 feet, he or she does not feel the need to manipulate others. The main deterrent to self-reliance is the mistaken certainty that others are smarter, wiser, or more intelligent than we are. This causes us to look to others for our happiness and welfare. The person who is dependent in this sense must always reach out to something external. He wants people, circumstances, conditions, or God to do for him what he should be doing for himself. This causes him to depend, manipulate, conform, compare, and compete. In this chapter, we shall learn how these destructive habits act as deterrents to building a self-confident personality. But, first, a word about self-reliance. Self-reliance. Self-reliance is not only the belief that you can handle things and become successful, it is something more than that. It is having the courage to listen to your inner promptings for a hint of the kind of success you truly desire. It means taking your cue from yourself or not listening to something or someone outside yourself to get an idea of what you should be, do, or have. When we learn to read the signs correctly and follow our intuition, we can begin to trust ourselves and not follow the beat of someone else's drum. Recognizing and breaking the dependency habit. Dependency is slavery by mutual agreement. It is degrading for both the person who is dependent and the person who is being depended upon. Both parties are equally lacking in self-reliance, for such a relationship flourishes on mutual exploitation. The most unfortunate aspect of dependency is that when you think you are dependent on another individual, you neglect to develop the necessary self-reliance to meet and solve your own problems. A sure sign of dependency is when you habitually look up to others as superior. The moment you begin to compare yourself with anyone, you are subjecting yourself to psychological slavery. The habit of leaning and depending is so ingrained in certain individuals that they abdicate all personal authority in favor of another person, philosophy, or religion. They feel that they will be secure if they can find a person, organization, or religion that they can cling to with blind devotion. They allow this person, organization, or religion to be responsible for their happiness. And, of course, this includes the luxury of having someone or something to blame whenever failure occurs. Their advice becomes a command that he feels compelled to follow. And often there is more than one advisor, so he is in a constant state of exhaustion as he tries to decide whose advice to follow. Advice is everywhere. Most of it is free and not worth the price. You usually have a dozen or more unpaid advisors who are more than happy to give you their opinion. But since others are generally engrossed in their own problems and do not know what you really should, ought, or must do, you invariably get the wrong advice. Indeed, accepting advice from someone who is not qualified to dispense it is like going a plumber to get your teeth fixed. Most people can't solve their own problems, so how can they advise you to do what they haven't been able to accomplish themselves? Overcoming dependency isn't easy. We have been conditioned since childhood to look to others for our welfare, guidance, and wisdom. But, while dependency plays a role in our upbringing and education, it was never intended to obliterate individual identity. Each one of us is born with the innate ability to resolve whatever difficulties we face. Read this and mark it well. No one can ever let you down if you are not leaning on them. No one can hurt your feelings, make you unhappy, lonely, angry, or disappointed if you are not dependent on them for your welfare, inspiration, love, or motivation. The person who is self-reliant does not need to find a master to lean on. He is able to meet life's challenges with confidence and power by looking at each situation in the light of reality. He sees things as they are, not as he would like them to be, and refuses to let his life be dominated by resisting reality. Once you have developed self-reliance, you do not have to Procrastinate, escape or evade what is facing you because you have the confidence to meet each life situation with self-assurance and poise. You are free from worry because you know that you are in full control. You are not separated from your source of power. You do not need repeated doses of inspiration and stimulation from others to do what you have to do. Instead, you go through life with the realization that the internal power within you is greater than any problem that faces you. Overcoming the need to manipulate. As a child, you neither knew nor cared about what was going on in the world around you. Your only concern was your own welfare. Helplessness made you dependent on what others would give and do for you. Your greatest happiness was being fed, held, and fondled. Your main concern was to get as much attention as possible. You quickly discovered that, if you started to cry, you could summon an adult to take care of your needs. Even if you just got bored, you could start crying and someone would usually appear to comfort you. Smiling, too, worked exceptionally well, so you soon learned to smile when you were picked up and cry when you were put down. This simple exercise in manipulation set the pace for the rest of your life. Your entire childhood was spent developing skills that would make a good impression on others and influence them to pay attention to you. Thus, even at this early point in your life, you were programming yourself to depend on other people's approval and to feel rejected when others disapproved. As a child, behavior like this was excusable, but as an adult, it is self-defeating. If you are still trying to manipulate others to do that which you are sufficiently capable of doing yourself, you cannot consider yourself emotionally mature. A growing habit in our culture is to do more and more for children and expect less and less. Parents guilty of this are unwittingly cheating their offspring by allowing them to be dependent for things they should be doing for themselves, by spending their first 18 years leaning and depending on others. Children are cast in the role of prisoners with good behavior privileges. It is interesting to note that this is a human phenomenon. Shortly after birth, all other species of animal push their young out into the world where they soon learn independence. The greatest gift any parent can give their children is to help them to become self-confident by making them self-reliant. Children should be given as much responsibility as they can handle at any age level. Only through independence will they learn the joy and privilege and human dignity of standing on their own 2 feet. It is a basic responsibility of parents to assist children in making a smooth transition from dependency to self-reliance. Children should be allowed to make and learn from their mistakes. If not, it is a small wonder that, later life, when they must do something on their own, they say, "I can't do it." Unless they are sure of the outcome, they refuse to attempt anything because overprotective parents have always cushioned the way. Every time you do something that someone is sufficiently capable of doing for himself, you are literally stealing from that person. The more you care for someone, the more alert you must be to see that you are not depriving them of the opportunity to think and do for themselves, whatever the physical or emotional consequences. This is true not only in parent-child relationships, but in marriage, family, and all interpersonal relationships as well. We cannot live other people's lives or bear their burdens, no matter how much we love them. The umbilical cord should be cut when children reach their early teens. I believe that they should be required to find their own living quarters no later than the age of 18 or upon completing high school. Many parents will rebel against this idea with what, to them, seems to be logical reasons. But the fact still remains that nothing builds more self-reliance in a young adult than having to live alone. It is interesting that almost without exception, the people who have achieved outstanding success in all fields of endeavor, including business, government, arts and sciences, are people who either were separated from their parents through hardship, or decided to emancipate themselves in their young adult years. We hear such excuses as "we want to help them through school, it will help them financially to live at home, it's just until they get going, they can't possibly afford their own place and go to school," and so on. On the surface it may seem like the parent is doing this for the child, but usually the motivation is satisfying their own need. Parents who accept and cultivate this attitude only delay and make more difficult the ultimate day of decision when their children must face the adult world on their own. Through the mistaken use of parental love, they have encouraged their offspring to continue to lean, depend and expect to receive help and support from others as if they were still small children. Now, let's get our perspective here. We are not saying that you should not help or give to your child, mate, or family. What we are saying is that you must allow them the individual freedom to do what they feel they must do in order to grow and develop. Assisting them is where the giving comes in. Give them love, encouragement, and recognition for their accomplishments. These are the vital elements of growth that they cannot supply for themselves. Even financial assistance should be considered carefully. There is nothing wrong with wanting to help the child financially, but financial assistance should be offered with a provision for its ultimate repayment. Individuals who have not developed self-reliance have no alternative but to use manipulation to get what they want. If you are not self-reliant, you have to depend on your skill at influencing people to serve you and fulfill your needs. If you do use others as a vehicle to get through life, you cannot possibly go faster or further than you can convince them to take you. If you are a parent, always be aware of any actions that will cause your child to remain in bondage because he or she will pay dearly for later in life. The fatal decision of conformity. Most of us grew up never having to make any major decisions. Adults frequently deprived us of this responsibility and made them for us. If we tried to make a decision or state an opinion, it was never given any importance. Our parents were the final authority. We either agreed to their demands or else tried to talk our way out of what they wanted us to do. As we entered adolescence, it became apparent that we would soon have to decide what was best for us. This can be a frightening experience as the average teenager goes forth into the adult world with very little preparation for what lies ahead. Our home training and system of education have largely ignored this vital and necessary part of our growth. It is at this stage of our lives that we make the fatal decision to conform. As children, we were trained to obey or suffer the consequences, so it is little wonder that, as we enter adulthood, most of us choose to perpetuate conformity as the easiest and most expedient approach to life. We prefer not to rock the boat because our need for approval is usually far stronger than our desire to do what we really want. Conformity is one of the greatest psychological evils of humankind. The person caught in this destructive habit rarely reaches his or her goals. He wants to be a great person, independent, and do important things. But he can't. His primary motivation to always seek approval prevents him. The conformist is filled with the need for approval. He can never get enough. He runs from one person to another seeking compliments and endorsements for his behavior and actions. As a child, he turned to parents and teachers. When he started to work, to his boss and fellow workers. In marriage, he turns to his mate. He must always have someone around to pat him on the head and tell him he is doing a good job. This bolsters up his poor self-esteem. By constantly seeking approval, he escapes from the responsibility of creating his own success and happiness and becomes totally dependent on others for his well-being. Indeed, he is their psychological slave, a person who can no longer imagine what life would be like if he approached it in a self-reliant manner. Remember what we said earlier. The opposite of bravery is not cowardice, but conformity. We should never invest another human being with the power to either build or wreck our lives or dominate our initiative. How comparison breeds fear. Comparison is a sign of poor self-esteem. The person who compares himself to others lives in a state of fear. He fears those he imagines are above him. Believing them to be superior, he feels he can never achieve their level of competence. He fears those he imagines are below him because they seem to be catching up. If he works in a large company, he is always looking around him to see who is looming as a threat. As he rises to greater heights, the greater is his fear of falling. The only way to get through life, he concludes, is to beat people at their own game. But, as his primary concern becomes being one up on the next person on his imaginary ladder, life loses its enjoyment. Competition, a killer of creativity. All forms of competition are hostile. They may seem friendly on the surface, but the prime motivation is to be or do better than the next person. However, you were placed on this earth to create, not to compete. So if competition is used as your basic motivation to do anything, it will literally conspire against you and defeat you every time. What we're saying is that the purpose of life is to be, not to compete. As one teacher puts it, I am for me, not against anyone. Although it may appear that the world is a competitive place, it is only competitive to those who feel the need to compete. Most people will reject this idea because of their childhood training where competition was highly promoted and endorsed. If you ask them if they think competition is healthy, they will reply, with great enthusiasm, that it is not only healthy, but it is necessary. They feel that it gives life meaning, purpose, and direction, that a person needs a reward for doing a good job. It never occurs to them that the reward is in the doing, and not in the end result. We compete with others only when we are unsure of ourselves and of our abilities. Competition is merely imitation. It originates in early childhood from our need to copy others. The competitive person feels that others are better than he and sets out to prove otherwise. He struggles to surpass those he feels are superior. In effect, he is always comparing himself to people around him. The competitive person always needs someone else to validate how well he is doing. The self-reliant individual, on the other hand, does not feel the need to compete. He does not need to look and see what others are doing or be better than the next person. Recognizing his capabilities for what they are, he strives for excellence in his own life. The only competition is with himself to achieve greater personal growth and excellence in what he desires to accomplish. Recognition versus praise. Praise. Oh, how we love the sweet music of praise. Most people will go to almost any length to hear it. They will part with their money, work long hours, and take physical or mental abuse, all for one word of approval. Just like the junkie who needs a fix, they will go to any extreme to get high. As they run from one pusher of praise to another, they become trapped in an addiction of approval. The more they are addicted, the more they abdicate their lives to others for direction. Praise-seeking implies that you must constantly prove your worth. Every time you make a mistake or do something you feel does not meet someone else's standards, you feel less than others. You then blame yourself and feel guilty for not doing what you think you should. You keep on asking yourself, have I done well enough? But the person who goes through life trying to do well enough develops the compulsive need to be or do better than others. And so one ill is piled on top of another. No matter how hard you try to be better than someone in any given area, you will feel inadequate because there are always those who, in your eyes, have surpassed you. They will have more money, larger homes, greater prestige, better physical attributes, etc. It is a game you can never win. What is there about praise which makes us act like flies around a sugar bowl? It is the replay of our childhood dependency when so much of our existence depended upon parental approval. Praise and blame were the means of control. If we are obedient and submissive, we were rewarded. If we resisted, we were punished. So deeply is the system of reward and punishment embedded in our subconscious minds and central nervous systems that we automatically respond to any form of praise or of blame. Just as we spent a large portion of our childhood and adolescence in trying to please our parents, so, as adults, we will spend much of the remainder of our lives trying to please others. The most destructive power of praise lies in its ability to make you identify with your actions. Praise says, in effect, that you are good because of your good acts and bad if you make a mistake or act badly. Anytime you do not meet the standards of the person praising you, you believe you have let them down and experience feelings of guilt. As a result, those who praise you can set you up so that they are in a position to control much of your life. As long as you serve their purposes, they will fulfill your needs. But when they want more from you than you are willing or able to give, they withhold the praise you seek and motivate you through guilt. They know that if they can make you feel guilty, you will do almost anything to regain their approval. If you are to be totally free and self-confident, you must cease being caught in the trap of praise-seeking. Breaking this destructive habit requires that you stop placing others above yourself. Never look up to anyone for any reason. If you stop looking up to others, you will never have to seek their approval and will no longer be seduced by praise or intimidated by blame. Recognition. There is a world of difference between praise and recognition. Recognition, as we shall use it here, is a factual observation. It is neither a compliment nor a value judgment. It is simply what the name implies. Recognition that a person has done the best she or he can based on her or his present level of awareness. The major difference between praise and recognition is that praise is a value judgment. If you tell someone that he is a great person for doing something for you, you are also saying that he is not such a great person if he doesn't fulfill your desires. For example, if your child brings you flowers, you shouldn't say, "You are a good boy for bringing me flowers." If you do, you are implying that, if he doesn't bring them, he is a bad boy. Instead say, "Thank you for the flowers. I appreciate them very much." This way you are giving the child recognition for his action without placing any value judgment on him as a person. Adults, young people, and especially children, respond more positively to recognition than they do to the sweet talk of praise. They need to know that they occupy a special place in the lives of those around them. They want to be treated as persons, not non-persons, to be accepted for what they are, not what someone thinks they should be. If they are given recognition for what they do based on their capabilities, they will sense that they are being acknowledged as individuals and not evaluated on the basis of their actions. They will feel that they are unique and worthy regardless of whether or not they measure up to other people's standards. The difference between praise and recognition may be subtle, but it is highly important in developing total self-confidence. If people are not given the recognition they need to make them feel accepted as the truly unique individuals they are, they will resort to seeking praise and become its prisoner, freeing yourself from others. We have already seen the high price we must pay for dependency and how our whole effort must be concentrated on trying to pry open the clenched grip each one of us has on the other. We are reluctant to lose the approval of family, friends, co-workers, and peer groups by doing what we feel and know we should do. And so we let opportunity after opportunity pass by, afraid to pay the price of emancipation. Yet, we can break away any time we want. So, the problem is not with someone else, the problem is with us. Your fundamental responsibility is your own physical and emotional well-being. By not breaking away, you are contributing to a situation of mutual dependency, which imprisons those upon whom you rely as well as you. The fact is that, in the long run, they will get over their hurt or disappointment and, most importantly, if you meet your own needs first, they will have new respect for you. Nothing can stop you from achieving total self-confidence, if you really want to. But until you free yourself from the mistaken certainty that dependency, manipulation, conformity, comparison, and competition are essential to your well-being, you will not be able to create the life you desire. Only when you decide that you are going to do everything you possibly can to free yourself on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level, you will be able to be the self-confident person you would like to be. The question remains, a bondage or liberty? The choice is up to you. Choice is up to you. Choice is up to you.